KirTop here, and these are 100 cases when archaeology encountered mysticism. The Guardian of Moho. In the highlands of Peru, in the Moho region, there is a stone statue. Not tall, outwardly simple, but nevertheless causing a strange feeling. At first glance, it is just a carved monolith in the Tiwanaku style. Clear lines, a static pose, hands folded on the stomach. But the longer you look, the more it seems that the figure is out of context, as if it did not come from this time, and not even from this continent. The statue is called Moho Huaca. Its base is made in the form of a cross, reminiscent of the Andean chacana, an ancient symbol where each side denotes a level of the world, upper, middle, lower. But in this case, the cross is twisted in a spiral, clockwise, which in itself is rare and perhaps indicates a ritual meaning lost over time. However, what attracts attention most of all is not the style or the symbolism, but the strange similarities. The pose of the statue, its hands lowered and folded on its stomach, its direct gaze, all of this unexpectedly echoes the images of the Moai from Easter Island. And even earlier, with the stone steles from Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. The same composition, the same gestures, the same restraint. Completely different cultures, separated by thousands of kilometers and centuries, but seemingly using the same language of form. Icy ruins under snow. We are used to thinking of the Arctic as a place where only icy emptiness reigns, lifeless, empty, devoid of traces of civilization. But what if this is not so? What if under the thickness of glaciers there are not just traces of long-vanished peoples, but entire lost cities? Satellite research in recent years has led to the discovery of anomalous forms under the ice crust, which may indicate ancient ruins hidden deep in the depths of the north. These cities, according to some scientists, may be much older than the earliest of the civilizations known to us. Mesopotamia, Egypt, ancient India, all these peoples could have been simply a continuation of something greater and more mysterious than we can imagine. How is this possible? How could it happen that such cities are hidden under a multi-kilometer layer of ice? Today, these anomalies are at the level of hypotheses, but each new study only strengthens the mystery. Satellite images taken in the most remote corners of the planet show strange shapes and lines that resemble the structure of buildings, streets, and even entire cities. And if these hypotheses are confirmed, what if these glaciers are not just barriers but burial grounds of ancient civilizations? Ice caps that hide not only climate change but also forgotten epics of humanity. Surprisingly, perhaps these cities were victims of global catastrophes that preceded the ice ages. After all, is there anything more ancient than what is preserved by eternal ice? This question excites scientists more than ever. And perhaps if we unravel the mystery hidden under centuries-old ice, we will revise not only the history of our civilizations, but also the very understanding of how our world developed. The mysterious harpy. The Queen of the Night relief, created around 1800 BC, is one of the most enigmatic artifacts of Mesopotamia. Also known as the Burney relief, it depicts a winged goddess with bird claws instead of feet, standing on the backs of two lions. On either side of her are owls, symbolizing power over the darkness of the night and the spirit world. The identity of the depicted goddess remains a subject of debate. Some researchers believe that this is Ishtar, Inanna, the Babylonian goddess of love, war, and fertility. Others suggest that the relief depicts Ereshkigal, the dark mistress of the underworld, Ishtar's sister. The symbolism of the relief indicates the power and supernatural strength of the goddess. The relief was probably a cult object associated with religious rituals or magical practices. Its rich detail and monumentality speak to the importance of the depicted deity and the beliefs of the era. Today, this artifact is kept in the British Museum. The Stafford Shire Horde. This is the largest find of Anglo-Saxon gold and silver artifacts discovered to date. The astonishing collection includes around 4,600 objects and fragments weighing over 5.1 kilograms of gold and 1.4 kilograms of silver, as well as over 3,500 pieces of garnet cloisonné jewelry. The items include military equipment, jewelry, and religious artifacts, demonstrating the high skill of Anglo-Saxon craftsmen and the wealth of those who owned them. The hoard was discovered in 2009 using a metal detector in a field near the village of Hammerwich, near Lichfield in Staffordshire, England. Archaeologists believe the treasure was buried between 650 and 675 AD, although some items may be older, dating back to the 6th or 7th centuries. The Staffordshire Horde includes many military items, such as gold fragments of swords and helmets, indicating the importance of military culture at the time. Of particular value are the religious artifacts found, which indicate the spread of Christianity in Anglo-Saxon Britain. Today, the Staffordshire Horde is exhibited in various museums in England and continues to attract the attention of researchers and history buffs from all over the world. Stone Age Bag. Around 2500 BC, a Neolithic man in what is now Germany found an ingenious way to decorate his bag. During excavations near Leipzig in 2012, archaeologists found more than 100 dog teeth neatly arranged in a grave, suggesting that they decorated the flap of the bag. Archaeologists noted that over time, the leather or fabric of the bag disappeared, leaving only the teeth pointing in one direction. These teeth likely decorated the outside of the bag. All of them are arranged in the same way, reminiscent of a modern flap. These finds were made in the Profan Quarry. Other important artifacts were found in the same area, including the burial of a woman who lived around 50 BC, buried with half a kilogram of gold jewelry. However, even against the backdrop of such rich finds, the bag with dog teeth was a real discovery. This is the first time that archaeologists have found direct evidence of the existence of such an accessory. The teeth of a dozen dogs were used to decorate this bag. In other burials of the time, archaeologists also found wolf teeth, dog teeth, and shells, which were apparently used to decorate bedspreads and clothing. When the fabric decomposed, only these decorative elements remained. A continent underwater. At the bottom of the Strait of Madura near the island of Java, archaeologists have found something no one expected. Not a sunken ship, not artifacts, but an entire ecosystem. Layers of earth in which the remains of Homo erectus, fragments of skulls, and traces of life, about 140,000 years old, are preserved. Along with them are the bones of giant bulls, turtle shells, traces of bones broken to extract bone marrow. This is not just an ancient human site. This is a fragment of a submerged continent, a vanished world that once connected the islands to the mainland. Scientists call it Sundaland. Today it is underwater, but back then it was plains, something like an Asian savanna with rivers, forests, and herds of large animals. On the bones of animals, archaeologists found traces of processing, like that of mainland Homo erectus. But until now, it was believed that Javanese groups did not have such skills. Now it is clear there was contact between populations and cultural exchange too. People passed on to each other methods of hunting, disassembling carcasses, processing shells. This speaks not only of technology but also of memory, of the transfer of knowledge. In addition to traces of hunting, remains of mollusks and river sharks were found. Everything indicates that there was once a rich, living, complex landscape here where man was part of the ecosystem, and now all this is on the bottom. Sundaland sank underwater tens of thousands of years ago. Without noise, without traces of cities or temples, it simply disappeared. And if it were not for random finds on the seabed, we would not even know that it existed. This reminds us, huge chunks of history can disappear not from a catastrophe, but from time. And all that remains is a fragment of bone left in the silt. A mineral that no longer exists. This stone weighs only 1.6 carats, but its price is literally incalculable. Kithawite is the rarest mineral on Earth. It was discovered by accident in Myanmar, in an ordinary market. Scientists have found out that its composition and crystal lattice are not found in nature anywhere else. At all. Not before, not after. The color is amber brown. The structure is like an alien object. Under the microscope, there are hollow tubes inside, formed by pressure and time. Today, Kithawite is stored in a Los Angeles museum. This is not just a stone, it is a mistake of nature, and perhaps a trace of an ancient geological event that science has not yet even guessed about. But what if this mineral is not just an accident of nature, but something deeper? What if its composition hides the answer to questions that we have not even asked? Craftsman's chest. In 1936, on the island of Gotland, a farmer lifted a plow and came across a wooden chest, chained and locked. There was no gold or weapons inside. there were tools, more than 200 of them. Hammers, drills, chisels, saws, scissors, forged locks and hinges. Everything was in working order without decoration, with obvious signs of use. Age, about 1,000 years. All of this belonged to a craftsman of the Viking Age. And what is especially interesting is that the shape of most of the objects is almost no different from modern ones. Hammers with a convenient weight distribution, scissors with elastic handles, chisels, sharp, precise. Many of them could lie in a box of a modern carpenter and would not raise questions. The chest was found on the site of a former lake. Why it ended up there is unknown. It could have been hidden from robbers or drowned while leaving in a hurry. Perhaps its owner simply did not have time to return. And then the place was forgotten, but the things remained. Metal was expensive in that era. Such a set was not just property, it was work, craft, accumulated knowledge. In this chest, not a legend, not a relic. Just life, collected in one box. 3 amazing artifacts. Archaeologists have made a discovery that could change our understanding of the history of ancient Egypt. The lost tomb of Pharaoh Thutmose II was recently found, an event comparable to the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. However, unlike the famous Golden Boy tomb, the tomb of Thutmose II was badly damaged. After the pharaoh's death, the room was flooded and most of the relics were probably moved to another location. One of the key artifacts is fragments of alabaster vessels decorated with the name of Thutmose II. These duck-shaped vessels were used in rituals and testified to the high status of their owner. The inscription on them helped confirm that the tomb did indeed belong to this pharaoh. Another important find is fragments of paintings that fell from the ceiling and walls. The researchers found that the ceiling was once painted blue and dotted with stars, and the walls were decorated with texts from the Book of Amduat, an ancient Egyptian text that tells of the journey of the sun god Ra in the afterlife. Such images were only found in the tombs of pharaohs and close nobles. Another artifact found was a wooden rod that could have been part of a spear or a ceremonial fan used for fanning the pharaoh. The shaft bears an inscription with the title of the king, which became further evidence that the tomb belonged to Thutmose II. Children's drawings in Pompeii. These findings immerse us in the everyday life of ordinary people on the eve of the disaster. Antique graffiti depicting fighting gladiators was found among the ruins of Pompeii. Scientists believe that these scribbles provide a better understanding of the way of thinking of the ancient Romans. The charcoal drawings were discovered among the ruins of the courtyard of the Casa del Secondo Cenacolo Colonnato, colonnaded house of the Second Last Supper. Researchers say the drawings were created by children probably aged 5-7 years. This is confirmed by the fact that nearby there was a silhouette of a small hand outlined in charcoal. This confirms that even ancient Roman children visited amphitheaters to watch bloody spectacles. Graffiti was found on one of the walls of the corridor near the service yard, approximately 1.5 meters from the floor level. The children probably climbed onto the scaffolding. The drawings depict 2 gladiators facing each other. Nearby is a scene of Venetia, hunting games, also with 2 fighters armed with long spears. They appear to be about to fight a pair of wild boars. On the right is the head of a bird of prey, presumably an eagle. In another room, most likely intended for storing amphorae, another series of drawings appeared on the walls, again at a not very high height. These are 3 small hands outlined in charcoal, 2 scenes of gladiators fighting, 2 figures playing with a ball, a boar, and finally, a scene of hand-to-hand combat in which one of the 2 fighters is lying down. Monster burrows. There are thousands of tunnels in South America. Some are as narrow as animal burrows. Others are like the corridors of a military base, 4 meters wide and hundreds of meters long. Who dug them? Water and lava are out of the question. Geologists unanimously say, not nature. There are furrows on the walls as if from claws. In one of these caves in Argentina, they found the answer, the skeletons of 2 giant sloths. They weighed 4 tons each. Their claws were up to 20 centimeters long. That's what they needed tunnels of this size for. It is believed that they dug burrows for generations to raise their offspring and hide from the glacial climate. And narrower passages could belong to other monsters, ancient giant armadillos. Their modern descendants also dig, but on a smaller scale. And here the question arises, what else lies beneath our feet if such tunnels could be dug not by people, but by animals? Pompeii. This is one of the most famous ancient cities that were tragically destroyed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Situated near modern-day Naples, it, along with the neighboring cities of Herculaneum and Stabii, were buried under a thick layer of volcanic ash and pumice, 4 to 6 meters high. This catastrophic event completely destroyed the city, but due to the fact that the ash preserved many buildings and artifacts, Pompeii has been preserved almost exactly as it was at the time of destruction. Today, Pompeii offers a unique opportunity to see the life of an ancient Roman city. Streets, houses, temples, amphitheaters, and shops have been preserved in amazing detail. Also preserved are plaster casts of the bodies of residents and animals, made by archaeologists. After organic materials such as bodies decomposed, voids were formed in the layers of ash. By filling them with plaster, archaeologists recreated the poses of people in their last moments of life. One of the most famous monuments is the Garden of the Fugitives, where you can see 13 such casts capturing the tragic moments of an escape attempt. This is truly considered one of the most unique places on our planet. A cat kneaded dough. This discovery was made during excavations on Mount Zion in Jerusalem, where among numerous finds, a fragment of a clay jug with prints of a cat's paw and claw marks was found. These marks belonged to a cat which probably kneaded the clay while it was still drying before firing. This is the first such find in archaeology, confirming that a cat felt so comfortable that it indulged in its usual feline behavior on clay. The fragment of the jug dates back to the Abbasid era, around 750 CE. The marks were not immediately discovered during excavations, but in the laboratory when the director of the laboratory, Gretchen Cotter, was carefully studying the materials found on Mount Zion. The paw print measures about 3x3 centimeters, and the depth of the claw marks suggests that the cat likely stretched and extended its claws, leaving deep marks in the wet clay. Cat kneading is an instinctive behavior that is commonly associated with feelings of security and contentment. Cats do this when they feel relaxed and content. Such animal prints on pottery are not uncommon in archaeology, but this is the first time evidence has been found of a cat leaving claw marks during the kneading process. Other animals, such as dogs and birds, often left marks in clay as it was drying before it was fired. This case is unique not only because it is the first time kneading has been recorded on a piece of pottery, but also because this ancient feline behavior has changed little over the millennia. Cats continue to knead soft surfaces, whether blankets, pillows, or our laps, which brings them a sense of calm and pleasure. Stoned room. High in the Andes, in the ancient complex of Chavan de Huantar, archaeologists stumbled upon a room they weren't supposed to find. It was completely closed, with no visible entrances, no windows, no doors, just a narrow opening, as if someone had deliberately hidden this space from prying eyes. Inside, there are 23 artifacts. All are related to the use of psychoactive substances. Some are thin, hollow bird bones, sharp, perfectly processed like pipes. Research has shown that they contain traces of tobacco and DMT, a substance found in ayahuasca. And here are the questions that arise. What was this small, dark room with inhalation pipes for? Why was it isolated? Why was it built in such a way that it would then be hidden forever? One of the authors of the study says, "This is not spontaneous shamanism. This is a ritual, strictly controlled, formalized, and perhaps it was not meant for everyone. Only the elite had access to these practices, perhaps the priests or the ruling castes, because hallucinations here are not just a journey inside oneself, they are a mechanism of power. A small room, 2 or 3 people, darkness, and a hallucinogen that changes the perception of reality. Such conditions could form contact with the gods, trance, visions, and if ordinary people believed that the priest really talked to spirits, then the priest could use this as a tool, both for control and for management." The tomb that they tried to steal. Summer 2023, Abkhazia, Markle settlement, an ordinary plot of land, and a destroyed ancient crypt. It was broken into by looters. The robbers tried to take away a bronze situla but were caught on the spot. The owner of the land took the artifact and called archaeologists. What they found amazed even seasoned specialists. The crypt of the 3rd century BC turned out to be a real golden tomb. 70 items made of pure gold, plaques, beads, elements of clothing, and jewelry. Rosettes, flowers, lunuli, twisted threads, foil, the finest work with almost jewelry precision. In some places, the gold resembled the Scythian Sarmatian style, in other elements, an antique influence. Perhaps these are the works of local craftsmen who worked at the intersection of cultures and trade routes. Archaeologists even found the remains of sacrificial animals, traces of a ritual important for the burial of a noble person. Judging by the artifacts, bones, glass beads, bronze bracelets, the deceased was not just rich, he was a representative of the elite, perhaps a priest or a chieftain. The irony is that the crypt was destroyed not by time or nature, but by people, the same as those who once built it. Great Battle Site. In the Tollens Valley, Germany, archaeologists have discovered one of the oldest battlefields in Europe, dating back some 3,250 years. It all began in 1996, when researchers found a bone sticking out of the riverbank. This became the starting point for the discovery of a real warrior cemetery. To date, more than 12,500 bones have been found belonging to hundreds of people who fought, as well as about 300 bronze and stone artifacts. Among the finds are arrowheads, spears, swords, clubs, and protective equipment. What is unique about the discovery is that the weapons often remain right in the skeletons, confirming how brutal the battle was. Many warriors died right in the water or on the shore, and their bodies remained untouched for centuries. This place reveals to us an unknown page of the history of the Bronze Age. Perhaps a battle took place here between different tribes fighting for territory or resources. Tollens proves that wars were fought long before antiquity and that ancient armies were more organized than previously thought. The oldest private company. Archaeologists in Turkey have found a cuneiform tablet that is about 4,000 years old. This discovery made it possible to establish that the tablet recorded the creation of one of the earliest commercial firms. Excavations were carried out in the ruins of the ancient city of Kultepe, located in Anatolia. Numerous cuneiform tablets dating back to around 1950 BC were found at the site, confirming their age to be around 4,000 years old. The tablet represents the earliest known record of a commercial company being registered. The first commercial company was founded with an authorized capital of 15 kilograms of gold and had 12 founders. Each of them automatically became a shareholder in the company, with each having different shares depending on how much gold they contributed. The company's capital was managed for 12 years by a merchant named Cupid Ishtar. All transactions were strictly recorded and sealed in the presence of witnesses. If someone wanted to withdraw their share before the deadline, they were given about 4 kilograms of silver instead of 1 kilogram of gold. This ensured that capital would remain in the company for a long period. This find is important evidence of early forms of business and shows how commercial activities were already regulated and documented in ancient times. A sword for the Immortals. This is not just a weapon. This is a sword created at the turn of the eras, when China was split into dozens of warring kingdoms. But someone in the midst of this cruel reality made something else. Not for battles, not for victories, but as if for a ritual. The blade is bronze, but with a turquoise tint, as if the metal had absorbed the color of the sky. The handle is carved from rock crystal, transparent as ice. It is inlaid with gold details and turquoise inserts. Geometry, ornamentation, decoration. Everything is so thought out that it becomes clear. The sword was not created for a soldier's hand. It was created for something higher. The Warring States period is the 5th to 3rd centuries BC, a time of constant war, betrayals, and great reforms. But this sword is out of context. It speaks of a ritual. It could have been used in sacrifices, in rites of passage, or as a symbol of power that needed to be proven, not held. It is these artifacts that are confusing, because they do not fit our idea of the ancient world. We expect crude blades and battle scars. Instead, we get crystal, gold, and metal carved like jewelry. Sakaiman. This is a majestic fortress located at an altitude of 3,701 meters on the northern outskirts of Cusco, the ancient capital of the Inca Empire in Peru. Built in the 15th century during the reign of the great Sapa Inca Pachacuti and his successors, Sakaiman is considered one of the most outstanding achievements of Inca engineering and architecture. The complex was strategically located to protect Cusco and its inhabitants, as well as to serve as an important ceremonial center. The most impressive feature of Sakaiman is its massive walls built from giant blocks of gray limestone. These boulders, some of which weigh more than 100 tons, were skillfully hewn and fitted with astonishing precision without the use of any mortar. Despite the enormous size and weight of the stones, the joints between them are so tight that not even a knife blade can fit between the blocks. This demonstrates the incredible skills and knowledge of the Incas in the field of construction, which continues to inspire admiration and mystery among scientists and engineers. In addition, the structure of Sakaiman has a zigzag shape, which adds an additional level of complexity to its construction and suggests a deliberate strategic and symbolic significance. The fortress was used not only for defense but also for religious and state ceremonies, making it an important spiritual and cultural center. Soap. This is one of the oldest hygiene products. Archaeologists found the first mention of soap on clay tablets from Mesopotamia, which are about 3,500 years old. However, many scientists believe that soap was used earlier. In ancient Egypt, papyri found in the burials of the pharaohs contain references to the rulers washing themselves using soap. Soap in those days was made from a mixture of fats and ash, which entering into a chemical reaction formed a soap solution. This ancient product was important not only for hygiene but also for the treatment of skin diseases. Over time, soap recipes improved, and already in ancient Rome, soap became more widespread. Thus, the history of soap goes back thousands of years, and it has always played a key role in maintaining cleanliness and health. Deserted castle. In the middle of the dunes in the Algerian desert there is a ruin. Lonely, without roads, without a name. Tourists do not get here. There are almost no satellite images. The place is called Sar Dra, but this is unofficial. Ksar in Berber means palace or castle, and Dra is the name of the river that once flowed nearby. No one knows who built this castle. No exact dating, no remains of a settlement around, only stone outlines against the sand. It seems as if the structure was cut out of time and simply forgotten. It is amazing that even in the era of geolocation, drones, and expeditions, there are places that almost no one has heard of. And perhaps it is these ruins that are most important because they do not fit into the usual picture. Road through ash. Southern Italy. During the laying of a gas pipeline, a routine job, an excavator catches something strange. Under a thin layer of volcanic ash are the prints of bare feet, human, and nearby, hooves. Archaeologists rush to the site and realize in front of them is the scene of an ancient flight. People, women, children, cattle, all left their homes in a hurry. But this is not Pompeii, not 79 AD. These traces are 1,800 years older. Around 1995 BC, the time of the so-called Avellian eruption, one of the most destructive cataclysms of the Bronze Age. Before that, it was believed that almost nothing was known about it. Now, we literally see the route of people trying to save themselves. Their last choice, imprinted in solidified ash. Surprisingly, centuries later, people settled in the same place again. Archaeologists have found remains of settlements dating back to 1200, 900 BC, and even Roman buildings. The cycle repeated itself. First an eruption, then a return, as if the earth itself would not let us forget. This is not just a story of a catastrophe, it is about repeated mistakes, about the stubbornness of human hope, about a memory that, like ashes, remains underfoot. Sacrifice or war trophy. Archaeologists have found a Roman enamel brooch from the 2nd century AD. It was discovered at an Iron Age settlement in South Ayrshire, Scotland. The artifact may have been used in a foundation sacrifice ritual, providing new information about contacts between the Romans and local Britons. The excavations were carried out on the site of the William Grant & Sons distillery, where researchers found the remains of a large wooden house and a fortified palisade. The brooch was lying in a foundation ditch, which may indicate its ritual significance. Such brooches are found on the borders of the Roman Empire, in Gaul, Switzerland, and along the Rhine. Scientists suggest that it may have come to Scotland as a war trophy, the result of trade, or an offering to the gods. The Curragh settlement, where the find was made, was in a strategic location. Although there were no Roman forts nearby, archaeologists have discovered traces of an ancient military camp. In addition to the brooch, artifacts from the Neolithic and Bronze Ages were found, confirming that the area had been inhabited for thousands of years. Terracotta Army. China's most remarkable archaeological discovery was not the Great Wall, but a vast collection of terracotta sculptures depicting the army of Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor. The sculptures were created as part of the emperor's funerary complex, built to protect him in the afterlife and continue his rule after his death. Composed of thousands of individually crafted figures of warriors, horses, and chariots, the Terracotta Army dates back to 210-209 BC. The army was discovered in 1974 when farmers in Lintong County, near the city of Xi'an in Shanxi Province, accidentally uncovered fragments of the statues while digging a well. Archaeological excavations that began shortly thereafter revealed 3 huge underground pits that, as of 2007, were estimated to contain more than 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots with 520 horses, and 150 cavalry horses. Each soldier has unique facial features and equipment demonstrating the high level of skill of the ancient sculptors. The Terracotta Army is part of the grand burial of Qin Shi Huang, who sought immortality and eternal power. This monument not only represents an example of ancient Chinese funerary art, but also symbolizes the power and ambition of the first emperor of a unified China. Forgotten civilization. On one of the plateaus in western India, far from cities and tourist routes, archaeologists have discovered petroglyphs that, according to preliminary estimates, are more than 12,000 years old. They are carved directly into the stone surface. The figures are strange, as if stylized people with elongated bodies, heads, and arms that are more reminiscent of something else. Some of the images evoke direct parallels with the mythology of Sumer and the Indus civilization. A similar image is found on seals found in Mesopotamia. There it is interpreted as a celestial being, a mediator between the worlds. And here is the same silhouette. Suddenly, on the Indian plateau, thousands of kilometers away. Scientists are cautious in their assessments. They talk about the coincidence of forms. They say that we cannot yet talk about a single culture. But there is another point of view. Perhaps these images are the last trace of a civilization that we know nothing about at all, which lived long before writing, before the Vedas, before the Indus culture, and its traces remained only on stone. There are more questions than answers. Who carved them? What do they mean? Why are they so similar to images from other parts of the ancient world? And how did it happen that these signs were literally underfoot, but almost no one knew about them? People are smarter than we thought. Archaeologists have discovered 27 bone tools dating back 1.5 million years in Tanzania. These finds prove that ancient people mastered the production of bone tools about 1 million years earlier than previously thought. Scientists believe that the processing of bone to create tools began about 500,000 years ago. However, new finds show that even then ancient people used a technique similar to stone processing. They chipped off small pieces, giving the bones the desired shape. Research has shown that these tools are made from the bones of large animals, elephants, hippos, and ancient bulls. This suggests that people consciously chose durable materials for their tools. The transition from working with stone to bone was an important intellectual leap in human history. Ancient people did not just copy familiar techniques, but also adapted them to new materials, which indicates the development of thinking and cognitive abilities. Ancient banks. The practice of lending valuables at interest dates back to ancient times, long before the advent of money. People already exchanged goods or services with the obligation to return more than was received. With the advent of a monetary economy, usury became the basis of credit transactions. One of the oldest legal documents, the Laws of Hammurabi, compiled in the 18th century BC, already contains articles regulating usury. For example, Babylonian laws limited the interest rate and prohibited collecting debts from people affected by natural disasters, which can be considered an early form of protecting the rights of borrowers. Real banks, as full-fledged credit organizations, appeared in Babylon around the 8th century BC. These institutions provided services related to storing money, lending, and currency exchange. In ancient Greece, banking functions were performed by trapezites, people who were engaged in currency exchange. However, their activities were not limited to this. They opened accounts for their clients, provided loans, and even carried out money transfers. Thus, even then, banks played an important role in the economy. In ancient times and the Middle Ages, loans with interest were often condemned and prohibited by religions. Christianity and Islam actively fought usury, considering it an immoral and unrighteous activity. Nevertheless, the need for loans always existed, and people found ways to circumvent religious prohibitions. For example, in medieval Europe, Jews, who were not subject to Christian prohibitions, often became usurers, which made them an important part of the economic system of that time. The Sea of Galilee boat. Also known as the Jesus boat, this is an ancient fishing vessel dating back to the 1st century AD. This unique artifact was discovered in 1986 on the northwestern shore of the Sea of Galilee in Israel, when a drought had caused the water level to drop significantly. The boat is 8.2 meters long, 2.3 meters wide, and has a preserved height of 1.3 meters, making it typical of the type of vessel used for fishing and possibly transporting people and goods across the Sea of Galilee in ancient times. Despite its nickname, the Jesus boat, there is no direct evidence that this boat was associated with Jesus Christ or his disciples. However, the find has important historical and cultural significance, as it dates back to the period when, according to the Gospels, Jesus and his disciples were preaching in the area around the Sea of Galilee. The boat may have belonged to local fishermen, and similar vessels were used for everyday life in those days. The vessel was built from different types of wood, indicating that it had been repaired many times in an attempt to maintain its seaworthiness. This is one of the rarest archaeological finds, allowing us to look into the lives and customs of the ancient people who lived on the shores of the Sea of Galilee during the early Christian era. A dam from the wrong time. On the Vinalopó River near the Spanish city of Elche, there is a stone dam that was long considered to be a construction from the Islamic period. It seemed typical, a powerful structure at the mouth, massive walls, traces of canals, everything fit into the usual chronology. But a new study based on the method of optically stimulated luminescence has completely changed the picture. It turned out that this structure is 1,000 years older than the supposed date and was built at the end of the 1st century BC, during the era of the Roman Empire. The dam, over 130 meters long and about 4 meters high, turned out to be not just a part of the landscape, but an element of the entire hydraulic system of the Roman colony of Ilici. It worked not only as a flow regulator, but was probably also used to irrigate the surrounding lands. This was not a separate structure, but part of a complex engineering network. Thoughtful, logical, practical. In this story, there are no cults, no inscriptions, no myths. Just calculation, geometry, and a clear understanding of the terrain. The dam was not built for beauty. It was not decorated with bas-reliefs and was not written into legends. It was built so that it would stand, so that it would let water flow where it was needed, so that it would serve the city. And it still works. More than 2,000 years have passed. Civilizations have changed, languages have disappeared, but the dam has remained in its place. The Forgotten Stone. In the heart of Lebanon, not far from the ancient temple complex of Baalbek, lies one of the largest processed stone blocks in history. This giant monolith, known as the Forgotten Stone, is impressive in size, 19.6 meter long, 6 meter wide, and at least 5.5 meters high. Its weight is estimated at around 1,500 tons, the equivalent of 200 African elephants. Some researchers believe that the stone was intended for an even grander structure than Baalbek itself. However, for unknown reasons, it was never delivered to the construction site. The Baalbek temple complex, famous for its colossal megaliths, was built during the Roman rule in the 1st–3rd centuries AD. However, the mysterious platforms of giant blocks, including the famous trilithon, could have appeared much earlier. Who were the ancient builders who processed and attempted to move such massive stones? Perhaps Baalbek is the legacy of an older and more highly developed civilization, the traces of which remain unsolved. The secret the CIA knew. In 2002, declassified CIA documents were made public. One of them was simply called Noah's Ark Report. It mentions a strange object on the slope of Mount Ararat, a formation that looks like the hull of a huge ship. There have been rumors about this place since the middle of the 20th century. But here's what's strange. The CIA filmed it from reconnaissance aircraft. Then they connected satellites, all for the sake of this anomaly. According to the official version, nothing special was found in the pictures, but dozens of requests to publish the footage, especially for 1974, were rejected. Why hide the images if there is nothing in them? Later, researchers collected soil samples from this place. They contain marine organisms, but Mount Ararat is located at an altitude of 4,420 meters. Does this mean that water really was here? The same one from the biblical flood? It would seem like a coincidence, but there are too many such coincidences. For too long, people have been trying to avoid this place. Knossos. The Greek island of Crete is home to some of the greatest archaeological sites from the Bronze Age. This ancient city was a key center of the Minoan civilization, which flourished from around 2000 to 1400 BC and is where most of the events of ancient Greek myths took place. The most famous of these is the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur, which claims that the palace at Knossos contained a labyrinth in which the monstrous Minotaur lived before being defeated by the hero Theseus. Knossos, located near the modern city of Heraklion, is often cited as the oldest city in Europe. Its centerpiece is the palace, built in a complex architectural style that included numerous rooms, ceremonial halls, storage facilities, and even a water supply system. Although the palace bears the name of King Minos, archaeologists believe that it was not exclusively a royal residence, but played an important role as an administrative, economic, and religious center. The Palace of Knossos is striking in its scale and complex layout, which evoked associations with the labyrinth of myths. Impressive frescoes depicting scenes from the life of the Minoans, as well as unique artifacts found during excavations, provide valuable insight into the life and culture of this mysterious civilization. Today, Knossos is an important tourist attraction and a symbol of ancient Crete. Stone Age axe. During excavations in the south of Denmark, in Rudbyhavn, archaeologists found something that is rarely seen in this form: a stone axe, completely preserved together with a wooden handle. The age of the find is about 5,500 years, and it is the condition that makes it unique. In the conditions of peat soil, saturated with moisture and organic matter, the wood did not decompose but seemed to be frozen in time. This is not an abstract archaeological object or a rare museum artifact. This is a real working tool that could be used for construction, hunting, everyday life. The slightly curved handle, the shape of the fastening, traces of wear, everything remained in place, and all this speaks not of a symbol but of a person who held this axe, carried it with him perhaps, passed it on by inheritance, and then it was lost or abandoned and lay in the ground for thousands of years. Such finds are important not only because they are rare, but because they allow us to feel antiquity not as an abstraction, but as a continuation. Between the one who held this axe and us, there is nothing but time. Antithyr Mechanism. It is impossible not to mention the most unique archaeological discovery, which many consider to be the first known analog computer, the Antithyr Mechanism. This complex device was created to predict astronomical events such as planetary positions and solar eclipses, and could track cycles including the 4-year period of the Olympic Games. It also allowed for the accurate calculation of lunar phases and solar years. Its functionality and complexity are astounding, considering that it was created more than 2,000 years ago between 150 and 100 BC. The Antithyr Mechanism was discovered in 1901 in the wreckage of an ancient ship that sank near the Greek island of Antikythera. Its discovery was a real sensation, since the mechanism consists of many bronze gears and wheels, which makes it incredibly complex for its time. The largest gear in the device has a diameter of about 13 centimeters, and the overall design indicates a high level of skill of ancient engineers. Scientists continue to study the artifact to this day, using modern technology such as X-rays and 3D scanning to uncover all of its functions. The Antithyr Mechanism is considered evidence that the ancient Greeks possessed knowledge and technology that was lost for centuries after. Brewing. The history of beer begins in the Neolithic period more than 11,000 years ago. It is one of the oldest drinks that accompanied humanity in the early stages of its development. Some scientists even hypothesize that people began to grow grain not for food, but to brew beer. This drink could be not just a way to quench thirst, but also played an important role in rituals and communication. Brewing is mentioned in one of the oldest literary works, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is about 3.8 thousand years old. This text, created in Mesopotamia, shows that beer was already known and valued in society. Beer also played an important role in the legislation of that time. In the Code of Hammurabi, a collection of Babylonian laws, beer establishments are mentioned as places that were especially strictly monitored. The owner of a pub had to maintain order, and if criminals gathered in his establishment, he could be sentenced to death. The ancient Egyptians were also big beer lovers. Pyramid builders received a liter of beer every day for their work. Interestingly, high-ranking officials received as much as 5 liters per day, which emphasizes how important beer was in ancient society. A shelter in the jungle. Imagine a group of people leasing a part of the Amazon for 1,000 years, including not only the land, but also the airspace and even natural resources. This is not a movie plot, but the real story of the Kailash Nation, a self-proclaimed state created by a fugitive guru accused of kidnapping and violence. He proclaimed himself the pontiff of Hinduism and fled India, declaring the new island his sovereign state. In 2024, his followers began to make agreements with the tribes of Bolivia, promising aid and money. One of the communities, the Baure, signed a 25-year agreement. But then it turned out that the documents included a lease term of 1,000 years. When this was revealed, an international scandal began. The Bolivian authorities arrested the participants, canceled all agreements, and expelled the ringleaders. But a troubling thought remains. If someone can come along with money and try to rent the Amazon, who's next? This isn't a story about cultists, it's a story about how weakness in the face of resources can result in the loss of an entire territory. Engineer from the future. In 1961, in the archives of the Romanian city of Sibiu, a professor was looking through old military records and accidentally came across a manuscript. Between the tables and calculations were strange diagrams. Not crossbows, not guns, but multi-stage rockets, stabilizers, nozzles, references to fuel. Everything looked like technical documentation from the 20th century, but the document was created in the 16th century. The author was Conrad Haas, an artillery master who served at the court in Transylvania. He ran the barracks, drew diagrams, wrote without embellishment and unnecessary words. His treatise was simply called How to Make a Good Rocket That Can Rise into the Sky on Its Own. Drawings, calculations, rare explanations, everything, as if he really tried to build something that did not exist at that time. Little is known about his life. He was born in 1509, was an engineer, did not participate in battles but created weapons. At the very end of the manuscript, he left a phrase unlike anything else. More peace and less war. Let the guns remain under the roof. Let there be no shot. Then the prince will save his money and the gunsmith his life. It's not a statement, just a quiet line at the bottom of the page. A pyramid that sunk before history. At the depth of 30 meters near the island of Yonaguni, there is a stone pyramid on the ocean floor. Smooth steps, terraces, arches, openings, everything looks as if it is a building and not random rocks. The age of the object is about 10,000 years. That is, it was built before the Sumerians, Egyptians, and the first cities. Scientists are still arguing. Some are sure that this is a trick of nature, while others consider Yonaguni to be evidence of a previously unrecognized civilization. If they are right, this could completely change our understanding of when and how human history began. What if this is not just an erroneous trace of nature, but a trace of some civilization? What if there is a history hidden under this ocean that we do not know? Flood helped archaeologists. The recent powerful flood in Libya unexpectedly helped archaeologists. After Storm Daniel flooded the ancient city of Shahat, the water washed away the soil and exposed an amazing artifact. An antique tombstone from the time of the ancient Greeks. It is made of limestone and has been perfectly preserved to this day. This find was a real gift for archaeologists since Shahat, ancient Cyrene, was a major scientific and cultural center of the Hellenistic and later Roman world. The philosopher Eratosthenes, who was the first to measure the circumference of the earth, once taught here, and the city itself was famous for its temples, theaters, and libraries. Immediately after the discovery, the Libyan Antiquities Authority created a team of specialists to protect and study the valuable monument. Now the slab is in the hands of experts who have already confirmed its authenticity. In the near future, archaeologists are going to find out the details of the inscriptions, which can tell more about the life and people of ancient Cyrene. Unknown statue in a Thai forest. Recently, mushroom pickers in Thailand found a stone sculpture of a woman resembling Buddha's mother and reported the discovery to researchers. Despite the remoteness of the region, archaeologists have doubts about the origin of the statue. This discovery has sparked controversy among scientists who are trying to determine the age of the statue. One of the people who found the statue shared the find on social networks, expressing his surprise and admiration. He called it a blessing because the sculpture was found in a place he had known for a long time. The sculpture, carved on the sloping surface of a rock, depicts a woman in full height. She has long hair and traditional clothing, including a long skirt and a heavy scarf around her neck. A woman holds a branch above her head. Some believe that the sculpture dates from the Dvaravati period, a kingdom of Southeast Asia, 6th and 11th centuries, and depicts Maya Devi, the mother of Siddhartha Gautama who became the Buddha. However, this theory is not generally accepted. An art historian from Silpakorn University in Thailand believes the sculpture may be more recent. He claims that the sculptor imitated ancient Indian art but created his work later. The specialist points out the sculpture's facial features, such as eyebrows and lips, which do not match those of the Dvaravati era. He also notes that the image of Maya Devi holding a fig tree branch was not common in the region during that era. The fig tree, native to Southeast Asia, has religious significance for Buddhists and Hindus. Merlin's parchment. Archives often look boring. Dusty folders, bills, names of long-forgotten people. And so it was in Suffolk County, in an old English estate, an ordinary 16th century ledger, and suddenly, under the leather binding, old French text with red and blue initials appears. The archivist stops. An investigation begins that will lead to the most mysterious legend of Britain, the story of Merlin and King Arthur. The parchment turned out to be a fragment of a 13th century manuscript, when legends about the Knights of the Round Table were at the peak of their popularity. Specifically, it is part of the Suite Vulgate du Merlin cycle, plots describing how Merlin acted after Arthur's coronation. Less than 40 such copies have survived, and each one is unique. But this one was sewn into the cover, like trash, because in the 16th century, old parchments were often used for bindings. The paper was expensive. Scientists could not touch the find. It was too fragile. Then technology came into play. Multispectral imaging revealed faded ink. X-rays created to study fossils allowed us to look inside the book. And it became clear, this is a new scene, previously unknown. 2 episodes. In the first, Gawain fights the pagan kings at Cambanek. In the second, a blind harpist with a white dog appears during a feast. He charms everyone, asks permission to carry the standard in battle, and disappears. Then it becomes clear that it was Merlin who changed the course of events. Magic, a mask, a legend. But this is not the main thing. The main thing is that all this could have remained in the cover forever. The story written by monks 7 centuries ago survived dozens of generations, wars, oblivion, and surfaced only because one person noticed a strange pattern on old skin. Real Indiana Jones find. Archaeologists have made an astonishing discovery beneath one of Jordan's biggest tourist attractions. 12 complete skeletons found in a tomb beneath the iconic structure in Petra known as the Treasury, Al-Khazna. The site was made famous by the film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The treasury, which is believed to be a mausoleum, was carved by the Nabatean people around 2,000 years ago. Petra was the capital of the Nabatean kingdom, and its majestic structures carved from pink stone still amaze the imagination. The discovery will help us learn more about the ancient Nabateans. Many other tombs in Petra contained only fragments of human remains, but this tomb contained 12 complete skeletons. This important find will allow us to study the rituals surrounding the life and death of the Nabateans, as well as their way of life, based on the analysis of their teeth and bones. The tomb has been tentatively dated to between the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD, during the height of the Nabatean kingdom, which was annexed by Rome in 106. One of the skeletons was found to contain a ceramic vessel reminiscent of the famous bowl from the Indiana Jones film, adding further intrigue to the find. The Guardian with a mysterious smile. On the Greek island of Kea, on top of a hill, there has been a mysterious stone lion for over 2,600 years. His wise smile, reminiscent of both the Cheshire Cat and the Mona Lisa, is shrouded in mystery. Locals call him Levtus and believe that he once almost destroyed their island. The Lion of Kea was carved in the 6th century BC from a single stone. According to one version, its author could have been the same architect who built the Athenian Acropolis. It is surprising that the statue has survived in such good condition despite thousands of years of rain, wind, and scorching sun. But the most intriguing thing is the legend about its origin. According to legend, water nymphs lived on Caia, whose beauty aroused the envy of the gods. The angry Olympians sent the lion to destroy the island. However, Caia survived, and a temple was built in its honor, and the lion itself remained a symbol of that mythological battle. No one knows whether its smile was intentionally carved by the sculptor or whether it is a bizarre play of time and weather. But one thing is certain, the Lion of Caia still enchants tourists and remains the keeper of an ancient legend. Stone Tomb. In the north of Morocco, where the Tangier Peninsula looks out onto Gibraltar, archaeologists have found not just a cemetery, but an entire ritual map. 3 ancient necropolises, burials in stone boxes, standing stones, geometric signs, and caves with wall paintings. All this in a region that archaeologists have rarely talked about before. One of the tombs was dated precisely to 2000 BC. This is a site, a rectangular niche carved into the stone with slabs on top. It was not an easy job. It took a lot of time and effort, and all for the sake of burying the body in a strictly defined shape. But why? On the walls nearby are bitriangles, patterns of 8 triangles superimposed on each other. Sometimes they are interpreted as female figures or symbols of goddesses. There are also circles with dots, waves, squares with lines. All this resembles a picture encrypted in stone, but we do not yet understand the language of this picture. There are standing stones around, some taller than a person. They could serve as both borders and places of power. Perhaps it was here that ancient people gathered to bury, pray, celebrate something. All this thousands of years ago, when the Sahara was an ocean. Now it seems lifeless. Endless sand, sun-baked rocks, rare caravans. But once upon a time, millions of years ago, the Sahara was completely different. It was an ocean. The Tethys Ocean is huge, warm, inhabited by ancient creatures. Ammonites, sea urchins, corals, giant reptiles. All this lived where today, lizards barely survive. Under a layer of sand, imprints of seashells, layers of limestone, and fragments of coral are still preserved. Geologists have found traces of deltas, channels, coastlines, everything that says water once splashed here. But the ocean is gone, and in its place another story arose. Hundreds of thousands of years later, people settled on this land. Some of the most ancient, whose name still sounds through the sand, the Berbers, or as they call themselves, the Amezi, descendants of those who survived the climate change, the disappearance of rivers, the drying up of lakes. They stayed when others left. Their rock paintings in Tassili and Ager are a real library of prehistoric consciousness. People hunting with bows, holidays, scenes of love and war. Even the image of creatures with rounded helmets seems to be from another reality. Some believe that this is an allegory, some believe it is evidence of contacts with another mind, but the essence is the same. When the Sahara was still breathing, the Berbers already knew how to tell their stories. They knew where to find water, how to survive when the days are hot and the nights are icy. They ruled Numidia, traded with Rome, fought with Egypt, and then they disappeared from the map, but not from the earth. The Arab conquests drove them out of the cities into the desert and mountains. But the culture survived. To this day, in remote villages, the Berber language is heard and memories that are thousands of years old live on. And in the desert itself, there are traces of a past that is much more ancient. Stone mushrooms. At first glance, they are just rocks. But if you look closely, the shape is striking. A massive cap of hard stone rests on a thin, corroded stem. These formations are the result of differential erosion. The wind, carrying sand, polishes the soft rocks for years, leaving the hard ones standing. Each such mushroom is like a timestamp. Temporary, but proud. Their legs gradually become thinner, and one day the cap will collapse. They live for hundreds, thousands of years, but they are still doomed, like the ocean, like civilizations. And only memory, in stones and pollen, in sand, survives everything. Are there other traces of this ancient civilization, and what can they tell us about the past that we still do not understand? Hidden secret of the past. Recently, a team of Russian scientists led by a crystallographer from St. Petersburg State University deciphered the structure of one of the rarest minerals on the planet, uramphite. This unusual mineral was first discovered 70 years ago at the secret uranium deposit Terracotta in Kyrgyzstan, but at that time its detailed structure could not be revealed. And recently, luck smiled on the scientists again. They found uramphite at the Russian deposit Beshtau in the Stavropol territory. Uramphite is a uranium micas and contains ammonium. This mineral has a bright luminescence and was previously used in photography, but despite numerous attempts to study it, its exact structure remained a mystery until 2023. Thanks to the latest equipment, scientists were able to study in detail a crystal only a few millimeters in size. The mineral turned out to be unstable, so finding a high-quality sample is a real stroke of luck. Only 11 uranium minerals with ammonium are known. Most of them were found in the United States, where ammonium is formed from organic matter, such as decomposed animal remains. The first concrete. The ancient Romans left behind an incredible architectural legacy. Their large-scale projects, bridges, roads, aqueducts, and of course majestic buildings amaze us to this day. Among the most famous buildings of ancient Rome are the Colosseum, the symbol of the city, and the lesser-known but no less impressive Pantheon Temple. The Pantheon is famous for its huge dome, which remained unrivaled in diameter until the 20th century. One of the key factors in the success of Roman builders was the use of concrete, or as they called it, opus cementitium. Roman concrete was a real revolution in construction. It was a mixture of sand, crushed stone, lime, and volcanic rock, which made it strong and durable. This material allowed the Romans to build not only massive but also durable structures, many of which have survived to this day. Interestingly, modern research shows a unique feature of Roman concrete: its ability to self-heal. When microcracks formed in the material, the interaction of water and volcanic dust led to chemical reactions that sealed these cracks. This became one of the main secrets of the incredible durability of Roman buildings, which survived thousands of years. While modern concrete begins to deteriorate after a few decades, Roman structures made using this ancient technology continue to stand to this day. Africa in Israel. In the south of Israel, in the Negev Desert, archaeologists have explored the Tel Malhada Hill, one of the places associated with the biblical city of Molada. Among the finds from the 6th century next to Christian burials, they discovered something unexpected: 5 hand-carved ebony figurines. The material is Saigon ebony, which grows only in southern India and Sri Lanka. This in itself is a mystery, but the faces are most surprising. The figurines depict male and female torsos with expressive features, wide cheekbones, flattened noses, and a high forehead. Researchers are sure that these images have African features. On their heads are massive headdresses with holes made in them, possibly to wear the figurines as pendants or amulets. The burials themselves are Christian. Glass vessels, bronze and stone jewelry, and alabaster objects lay nearby. And among all this, there are figurines that clearly come from another culture and another world. This is not just a trade item. This is an object that had meaning. Perhaps these were images of ancestors. Perhaps they were symbols of the homeland that were preserved even after conversion to a new faith. Byzantine Palestine was a crossroads. Caravans, ships, and traders came from Africa, Arabia, and India. These figurines could travel hundreds of miles, change hands dozens of times, and end up here, in the sand, among the gravestones. For archaeologists, this is a rare find. It shows how deeply and complexly cultures mixed. Entrance to an underground ecosystem. In the center of Vietnam, there is a place where even science has not yet reached. Son Doong Cave is the largest on Earth, more than 6 kilometers long. Volume: 38 million cubic meters. To understand the scale, a block of skyscrapers would easily fit inside. But the main thing is not the size. The main thing is that inside this cave lives a separate ecosystem. Its own river, lakes, jungle, stalactites, tens of meters long, plants, insects, microorganisms, many of them perhaps are unknown to science. Light does not penetrate there. The air is its own. Humidity, temperature, pressure, everything is closed inside, as if the planet decided to create its own reserve outside of history. And interestingly, we still do not know where this cave ends. The endpoint has not been explored. Perhaps further on there is another hall, another biosphere bubble, or even a separate evolutionary path that went parallel to ours. Ancient love for sweets. People developed a love for sweets long before their diet changed, and scientists have found that our ancestors were ready for it thanks to ancient DNA. The AMI1 gene, which is responsible for breaking down complex carbohydrates, appeared much earlier than previously thought and may have played a key role in the development of civilization. The digestion process begins in the mouth, where saliva contains amylase, an enzyme that converts starch into simple carbohydrates. It was previously believed that this enzyme arose with the onset of agriculture, when bread and starchy foods appeared in people's diets. However, a study by the University of Buffalo and the Jackson Laboratory, USA, has shown that salivary amylase existed more than 800,000 years ago, long before the advent of agriculture. A study of ancient genomes, including people who lived 4,500 years ago in Siberia, revealed that they already had 4 to 8 copies of the AMI1 gene. This suggests that the mutation responsible for amylase synthesis arose as a result of natural selection. Moreover, this gene was present in both Neanderthals and Denisovans, which confirms its ancient origin. The comparison also showed that modern Europeans, especially farmers of the last 4,000 years, have an increased number of copies of this gene, which is associated with a change in diet. A lock under the asphalt. During excavations in the center of Moscow in the area of Nikolskaya Street, archaeologists found a metal combination lock from the 17th century. 7 discs with Latin letters on the end, the initials MW. The lock was simple but neat. It is unknown who used it. Perhaps it was a travel chest, perhaps a personal box. Nearby, in the remains of a burnt building, bells made of non-ferrous metal were found. According to the time, the end of the 16th, beginning of the 17th century. They were most likely hidden before a raid or fire. This is what they do when they are not sure that they will be able to return. The bells were lying in a corner in the ground and were well preserved. In other areas, they found a Turkish dish, baking molds in the form of pine cones and flowers, tiles with ornaments. All these are everyday things. They belong to different people from different places and different eras, but they ended up in the same layer. Everything is within the boundaries of one city, under what we have long considered an ordinary street. Surrounded by 2 goddesses. In 1908, archaeologists made a stunning discovery. 4,500-year-old statues of Pharaoh Menkaure hidden in the sands of Giza. These sculptures have been preserved in almost perfect condition, demonstrating the highest skill of ancient Egyptian sculptors. Menkaure was not just a ruler, but the builder of one of the Great Pyramids, and here he is depicted surrounded by 2 goddesses. To the left of the pharaoh stands Hathor, the goddess of love, motherhood, and the sky, symbolizing protection and divine patronage. To the right is a female figure personifying one of the nomes, regions of Egypt, emphasizing the importance of the king as the unifier of the country. These compositions not only exalted the pharaoh, but also emphasized his connection with the gods. The sculptures of Menkaure are some of the most impressive examples of ancient Egyptian art. They lift the curtain on the past, allowing us to glimpse how the Egyptians perceived power, divinity, and kingship. Rapa Nui statues. Easter Island, located in the southeastern Pacific Ocean at the edge of the Polynesian Triangle, is home to nearly 1,000 monumental statues created by the ancient Rapa Nui people. The moai figures were carved from volcanic tuff in the Ranyo Raraku quarry, and many of them remain there today. However, a significant portion of the statues were moved and installed on special stone platforms called ahu along the coast of the island. The moai are notable for their disproportionately large heads, which make up about 1/3 of the total height of the statue. These legless monuments range in height from 2 to 10 meters, although the largest unfinished statue remains in the quarry and reaches 21 meters. The moai were considered the embodiment of ancestral spirits and played an important role in the ritual life of the Rapa Nui people. It is still unclear how exactly the ancient inhabitants of the island moved these giant sculptures across the rugged terrain. There are hypotheses that they used ropes and ingenious technologies to walk the statues to their places of installation. The moai, facing the villages, probably symbolized the protection and strength of the ancestors watching over their descendants. Skulls with nails. In the southeast of Spain, among the ruins of ancient settlements, archaeologists have found something that immediately evokes an alarming feeling. 7 severed heads. Some have huge metal nails driven into them, not all the way through, but with obvious force, as if the skulls had been nailed to something. But why? At first they thought trophies of war, like the heads of enemies, displayed to intimidate. But a chemical analysis of the bones gave an unexpected result. Not all the skulls were foreign. In one city, 3 out of 4 heads belonged to people who came from afar, and in another, almost all were local. And this changes everything, because in one place, strangers were apparently executed and put on display, and in another, their ancestors were kept as relics. The heads were found near houses, inside dwellings. So this is no longer a demonstration of force, it is memory and respect. The Greeks wrote that the Gauls kept the heads of their enemies in boxes, and that Spanish mercenaries carried them on spears. But in reality, everything was more complicated. The first vending machine. The city of Alexandria in Egypt was a true pearl of the Hellenistic era, a center of science, culture, and innovation. It was there that the Museum was located, the first prototype of a university in history, as well as the famous Library of Alexandria, which stored knowledge from all over the ancient world. In this city in the 1st century AD, the outstanding scientist and inventor Heron of Alexandria lived and worked. His contribution to science and technology was truly enormous. He studied mathematics, optics, hydrostatics, and also created prototypes of such inventions as the theodolite, odometer, and even a steam turbine with jet propulsion. However, one of his inventions is especially interesting in the context of everyday life. Heron created the world's first vending machine. This amazing mechanism was located at the entrance to the temple and dispensed a portion of holy water for drinking and washing hands. The principle of operation was simple. A visitor to the temple threw in a 5 drachma coin, and the machine released a certain amount of water. The device worked thanks to the weight of the coin, which set in motion a lever that opened the valve. It may seem that such a simple system could be easily deceived by throwing something else instead of a coin. However, modern researchers and reconstructors claim that the machine could be adjusted to a strictly defined weight and size of the coin, which made attempts at fraud practically useless. This mechanism, despite its simplicity, was a brilliant find for that time and showed how progressive the ideas of Heron of Alexandria were. Storm reveals ancient ritual. In the spring, after a storm, a coastal cliff collapsed on the shore of the Baltic Sea. The lump of clay that fell down hid something inside that no one would have found without the help of nature itself. It had lain underground for almost 3,000 years and was in perfect condition. Length, 24 centimeters. Decorated with ornaments, stars, crescents, symbols reminiscent of the signs of the sun and moon. According to archaeologists, the weapon had ritual significance. It was probably used in ceremonies associated with the cult of the sun, and the ornaments correspond to the astral symbolism of the Bronze Age. The place of the find itself, a beach from which nothing could be predicted. Just clay, just a crumbling shore. And here it is, an object that had lain in the dark for 3 millennia, coming to light for just a few seconds before it could have been carried away by the water. Sometimes archaeology is not only excavations. This is when the earth itself chooses the moment to show you something important. Love conquers all. The artifact was found during archaeological work on a 15th century harbor crane sandwiched between 2 defensive towers. Polish archaeologists have discovered a medieval decoration in the shape of a dove with the Latin inscription Amor vincit omnia. Love conquers all. The dove badge contains the remains of 2 handles, which allowed it to be hung on a chain or attached to clothing. For the ancient Greeks and Romans, the dove symbolized love, devotion, and care. The dove was the sacred animal of the love goddesses Aphrodite and Venus. Dr. Anna Rymbish-Lubiewska, an archaeologist at the museum, says pigeons are associated with love and fidelity. A pair of doves symbolizes care and devotion to a partner, making them the perfect symbol of love and family. The National Maritime Museum in Gdansk said that such decorations were popular in Gdansk between the 14th and 15th centuries. This fashion came from Western Europe, especially from the Netherlands and England. This harbor crane was once the largest working crane in the world. It also served as a defensive structure and one of the city gates. The crane had a lifting capacity of 4 tons to a height of 11 meters, which was achieved thanks to 2 massive wooden wheels at the base, each of which had a diameter of 6 meters. Since 2020, work has continued to restore the port crane, which was severely damaged during World War II. A coin that looks like a medal. What you see here is not just money. This is a decadrachm, an ancient Greek coin worth 10 drachmas. It weighs about 43 grams. It is almost the size of a modern medal, and its meaning is also closer to a medal than to money. Such coins did not circulate in markets. They were minted for special occasions. Victory in war, a gift to the gods, a sign of remembrance. This one depicts the nymph Arethusa with a laurel wreath, earrings, and a thin chain around her neck. There are 4 dolphins around her. They seem to be moving in a circle, guarding her, or circling like waves off the coast. This coin was minted in Syracuse. It was here that the cult of Arethusa was especially strong. According to the myth, the nymph escaped from Alpheus and turned into an underground spring that bubbles up off the coast of Sicily. And next to it is the sea, dolphins, and the city that celebrated its victory through beauty. Decadrachms were rarely minted, usually as a special issue, and they were almost never used. They were given as gifts, kept, sometimes placed in graves. Only a few have survived to this day, and each of them is not just an artifact, it is a memory carved in silver, a reminder that money was once closer to a ritual than to a market. Trilithon. In Baalbek, in the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter, there are 3 huge stone blocks that still amaze even experienced archaeologists. They are called trilithon. Imagine the scale. Each block weighs almost 800 tons, and the dimensions are impressive. About 19 meters long, a little more than 4 meters high, and about 3.6 meters wide. Even now, lifting and moving such giant stones would be difficult, and the ancient builders did not have cranes or special equipment at their disposal. It is still not entirely clear how exactly these giant stones were delivered and laid. It is believed that the stone blocks were moved on special wooden sleds, using logs and hundreds of workers. Some even assume that aliens participated in the construction, but serious scientists reject such hypotheses. Trilithon is not just the foundation of a temple, but a striking example of how complex the engineering knowledge of ancient civilizations was. Perhaps future discoveries will help to solve the mystery of the appearance of such massive structures in antiquity. Viking sword in trash. On May 27th, Eivind Tveitane Lovra and his son were cleaning their farm in Suldal, Norway. While cleaning, they found a metal object that turned out to be a valuable artifact. Archaeologists with many years of experience took the sword for examination. They had never encountered such finds. During the Viking Age, a sword was a major indicator of status, and wearing one was a privilege. X-ray examination of the artifact allowed scientists to obtain valuable information. The blade retains the contours of an engraving in the form of a cross and possibly letters. The weapon dates back to between 900 and 1050, but the sword has lost almost half its length. According to the Gulaming law, the sword was a mandatory attribute of free men who attended meetings. The find may be the famous sword of Ulfbert from the Viking Age or early Middle Ages. Sigmund Orell, professor of archaeology at the University of Stavanger, explains that Ulfberts were high-quality swords produced in the Frankish Empire, now Germany. About 170 such swords are known, most of which were found in Scandinavia. Ulfberts are made of crucible steel with a high carbon content up to 1.2%. Ancient Christian Church. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of an Armenian church almost 2,000 years old, making it one of the oldest in the world and the oldest on Armenian territory. The University of Münster in Germany, which collaborated with the Armenian Academy of Sciences on the excavations, called the find sensational evidence of early Christianity in Armenia. The church was found during excavations in Artashat, which was once a thriving metropolis and the capital of the ancient Armenian kingdom. Experts believe that the church was built in the 4th century AD, the same time as the Echmiadzin Cathedral, the first Armenian church and considered the oldest in the world. The building is the oldest archaeologically confirmed temple in Armenia. It is the first known octagonal church in Armenia. Similar structures are found on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea and also date back to the 4th century. The church resembled early Christian memorial buildings with a diameter of about 30 meters. The floor was made of a mixture of sand and cement, and the walls were made of terracotta, probably brought from Greece or Italy. Scientists also found traces of wooden platforms, which allowed them to accurately date the structure using radiocarbon dating. A timeless sword. When archaeologists opened a flooded tomb in Hubei province in 1965, they found a sword inside that had been in the water for about 2,500 years. It lay in a wooden sheath, unpreserved, unprotected, but it looked like it had been made recently. The blade gleamed. The pattern was clear. It cut through paper like a blade. On the surface was an engraving with the owner's name, Gu Jian, King of Yue. This sword is not just a weapon. It was made with a precision that is difficult to explain. The alloy, the polish, the tightness of the sheath, everything was at the highest level. But the main thing is that it has survived centuries, wars, and complete oblivion and remained intact. Scientists are still not sure how this is possible, but the very fact that such an object has reached us in working order is already a discovery. This sword serves as a reminder that a thing can preserve history better than any words. Under the temple where it all began. Jerusalem, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the most revered places in the Christian world. It is believed that this is where Jesus was buried, but for a long time archaeologists argued, to what extent does this correspond to the biblical description? Everything changed when scientists from the University of Rome began digging under the floor of the temple. They found not a tomb, not an artifact, but the remains of an ancient garden. Layers of earth between stone walls, traces of terraces and a cultural layer, and most importantly, pollen from grapes and olive trees. All this corresponds to the text from the Gospel of John. In the place where he was crucified, there was a garden. If radiocarbon dating confirms the age of the find, this will be the first direct archaeological confirmation from the text of the New Testament. That's right, not theological, not symbolic, physical. In addition, during the excavations, they found an ancient marble altar that disappeared during a fire in the 19th century. It stood in the temple all this time. It was just turned to the wall. On the front side, graffiti from tourists. On the back, a unique mosaic made in a technique that only Vatican masters knew. No sensations, no mysticism, only facts. But sometimes they speak louder than any legends. Noah's Ark found. According to the Bible, Noah's Ark saved people and animals from the Great Flood. Now, 5,000 years later, researchers have once again turned their attention to one of the most mysterious places, the Durupinar Formation in Turkey. This 163-meter-long structure surprisingly matches the biblical description of the legendary vessel in Sicily. Scientists from Istanbul Technical University and Agri Ibrahim Sesin University have been studying the area since 2021. A recent analysis of 30 soil samples revealed clay, marine sediments, and shellfish remains dating back 3,500 to 5,000 years. This suggests that the region did indeed experience a massive flood. The formation is located just 30 kilometers from Mount Ararat, where, according to the Bible, the ark came to rest after the flood. The dimensions of the structure are also close to the biblical ones. The supposed length of the ark is 157 meters and Durupinar is 163. However, many geologists are skeptical about the hypothesis. They believe that Durupinar is just a natural formation. Despite this, the discovery continues to arouse interest and new research. Rare astronomical instrument. An 11th century medieval brass astrolabe was discovered by accident, but has proven to be an important piece of evidence of cross-cultural scientific interaction. Created in Spain, it later received inscriptions in different languages as the new owners adapted it to their own needs. This artifact is unique, like a palimpsest, reflecting the changing ideas and needs of its owners. This is not just a rare example of an ancient instrument. This is a powerful testimony to the scientific exchange between Arabs, Jews, and Christians over the centuries. The Verona astrolabe has undergone many changes, passing from hand to hand. At least 3 owners added translations and corrections, 2 in Hebrew and 1 in Indo-European. Astrolabes are maps of the sky with rotating parts that help determine position in time and space. They were useful for navigation, astronomy, and astrology. A figure without a face. In the Damjili cave in Azerbaijan, archaeologists have found a tiny sandstone figurine, just 5 centimeters long. The details are amazingly precise. Hairstyle, belt, clothing, but the face is missing. No gender, no expression, only a restrained pose and a sense of image. This find is about 9,000 years old. This is the first Mesolithic human figurine found in the South Caucasus, but its value is not in its primacy. It is in the fact that it exists. In a region where ceramics were not yet known, someone was already trying to carve a person. Scientists believe that the figurine belongs to the transitional era, when nomads became sedentary, and not just dwellings arose, but rituals, memory, symbol. The Neolithic did not come here immediately. It manifested itself through such things, quietly, slowly, imperceptibly. These microbes are 2 billion years old. Scientists have discovered the oldest microorganisms living in the depths of our planet. Rocks about 2 billion years old were found in South Africa, which is impressive in itself, but even more sensational was the discovery of living microbes in them. These organisms are the oldest microorganisms ever found in such ancient rocks. Before this discovery, it was believed that the oldest living microorganisms were found in geological layers about 100 million years old under the ocean floor. But a new study has shown that even rocks 2 billion years old can be habitable. This discovery significantly expands our understanding of life in extreme conditions and its evolution on Earth. The microbes were discovered in a crack in an ancient rock extracted from the Bushveld igneous complex, the largest intrusion of igneous rock on Earth. This region is famous for its ore deposits, including about 70% of the world's platinum reserves. Microorganisms that live in such conditions develop incredibly slowly and can survive for billions of years. This discovery is important not only for the study of life on Earth, but also for future exploration of Mars. Microbes that survive in such extreme conditions give hope for the possibility of life existing beneath the surface of other planets. The gate through which death passed. On the southwestern coast of Sicily, archaeologists have unearthed not just ruins, but a completely forgotten fragment of an ancient city. 3-meter walls, gates, cemeteries, workshops, all of this belonged to the ancient Greek Selinunte. Recently, the northern gate, through which processions to the necropolises passed, was discovered. They led to 5,000 burials, from simple burials to rich crypts. And all of this stood on the most vulnerable border of the city. Apparently, ritual and vulnerability were connected. According to Diodorus Siculus, it was from here that the troops of Carthage burst into the city. The battle lasted 10 days and 16,000 defenders of Selinunte died. The site of the battle is right there, underfoot, and nearby are cemeteries where they were possibly buried. It is amazing how much has been preserved. Ovens, fragments of ceramics, the remains of craft workshops, wine warehouses. The scale and density of the finds make it clear that the city lived, traded, ritualized death, and suffered. And now, 2,500 years later, it is slowly returning to the surface. Underground tunnels of Cusco. Mysterious underground Inca tunnels almost 2 kilometers long have been discovered in Peru. The discovery was made by archaeologists studying the ancient city of Cusco. The tunnels connected the fortress of Sakaiman, the Temple of the Sun, and important religious buildings. The buildings, built from massive stones, are striking in their strength and engineering mastery. They are able to withstand the strongest earthquakes typical for the region. Scientists are sure that the Incas used these hidden paths for the secret movement of priests and military leaders between strategic and ritual sites. Despite legends about treasures, nothing has been found inside yet. An imprint in the sea. There is a tiny island in the Adriatic Sea. Its area is only 0.14 square kilometers. It is uninhabited. There is no pier, buildings, or even paths. Only stones. But if you rise above it from the air, you will see something that is not visible from the ground. The entire island is penetrated by tens of kilometers of stone walls. They twist, intersect, form loops, circles, and lines. The entire structure resembles a giant fingerprint. The island is called Baljanak. Several centuries ago, farmers from the neighboring island of Caprije came here. They planted grapes, olive trees, and manually, stone by stone, built protective walls from the wind. Without cement, without technology, only the strength of their hands and patience. Even the numbers are impressive. On an island 1.5 kilometers long, 23 kilometers of walls, and on the entire Sibinic archipelago, more than 100 kilometers laid by hand. Today, these walls are protected by UNESCO as a monument to human labor, but no one lives in Balanak. The walls remain, and the people have left. Dyed clothing in good condition. Archaeologists have discovered the oldest remains of dyed fabric in the Netherlands, dating back some 2,800 years. Fragments of woolen material with a red and blue checkered pattern were found in an elite burial site from the early Iron Age in the province of North Brabant. The study showed that the clothing probably belonged to a noble woman buried with rich bronze and iron jewelry. The fabric was preserved due to oxidation of the metal of the bracelets on which it was pressed. According to scientists, these fragments could have been part of a long-sleeve dress or another complex outfit. The analysis revealed that natural dyes were used for coloring. The blue color is obtained from woad, Isatis tinctoria, a plant known since ancient times. The red tint is given by carmine, obtained from insects, probably Polish cochineal, Porphyrophora polonica. This find confirms that the inhabitants of the region already in the 8th century BC had mastered complex textile technologies. Before that, the oldest examples of dyed clothing in Europe were found in Italy and Austria. Now, the Netherlands is also among the countries where dyes and patterned fabrics were used long before antiquity. DNA of modern Japanese. Today, Japan attracts people from all over the world, but it was not always so. For 10,000 years, the archipelago remained isolated until the first migrants from the mainland began to arrive there. This was confirmed by genetic analysis of the remains of a man of the Yayoi era. The Japanese population has a dual origin, but the details of this mixing remained unclear for a long time. Scientists from the University of Tokyo, led by Jong-hyun Kim and Jun Ohashi, decided to look into the matter. According to their data, about 80% of the nuclear genome of modern Japanese people comes from people from East and Northeast Asia. There are two models that explain the genetic diversity of the Japanese. One assumes a single wave of migration during the Yayoi and Kofun periods, the other allows for several sources. Geneticists analyzed the genome of a man of the Yayoi era from the Doigahama Cemetery and compared it with ancient and modern populations. It turned out that the Yayoi and Kofun people are genetically closer to Koreans than modern Japanese, confirming the hypothesis of a single source of migration from the Korean peninsula. Tomb of Philip II of Macedon. Discovered in Vergina in northern Greece in the late 1970s, the tomb of Philip II of Macedon is one of the most significant archaeological finds in the history of ancient Macedonia. Situated near the necropolis of the ancient capital of Macedonia, Agi, the tombs are believed to be the final resting place of Philip II, the king of Macedonia and father of the great conqueror Alexander the Great. The tomb is distinguished by the splendor and wealth of the buried artifacts. Archaeologists found weapons, armor, gold and silver objects, including unique precious ossuaries, vessels for storing cremated remains. One of the ossuaries, decorated with a golden wreath of oak leaves and acorns, contained bones believed to belong to Philip II himself. This discovery not only confirmed ancient descriptions of the greatness of the Macedonian kings, but also provided new information about the cultural and burial rites of the elite of that time. The armor and weapons found near the remains indicate the important role of military affairs in the life of Philip II, who not only strengthened Macedonia but also prepared the ground for the future conquests of his son, Alexander the Great. Gods from the underground. In ancient Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire, archaeologists have unearthed a monumental relief. It was hidden in the ground right opposite the entrance to the throne room of the northern palace. The slab is almost 6 meters long and 3 meters high. It weighs about 12 tons. The image on it is striking in its detail. In the center of the relief stands King Ashurbanipal. On either side of him are the two main deities, the supreme god Ashur and the goddess Ishtar, the patroness of the city. Behind them are strange figures. One of them resembles a man with the body of a fish, the other a figure with raised arms, possibly a scorpion man. This is not a scene of submission, but of the assertion of power. The king is shown not as an ordinary ruler, but as a link between the world of people and gods. But the main thing is different. The relief was not destroyed. It was carefully buried, not thrown away, not broken, but hidden. This is done either to preserve it or to make sure no one else sees it. This happened after the fall of Assyria, probably in the Hellenistic period. And it's strange because these halls were known about back in the 19th century. The British took dozens of reliefs from there, but this one remained in place. Perhaps because no one knew where to look, perhaps because it was intended that way. The relief itself was in the main part of the palace, right opposite the entrance, the most important place, the most visible. And then, silence for 2,000 years. The city that shouldn't exist. In the south of modern Iraq, amidst the sun-scorched land, lie the ruins of Eridu. Once upon a time, canals flowed here, artisans worked, and fields were irrigated according to a precisely calculated system. Recent research has shown that Eridu is not just an ancient city, it may be the very first city on Earth. According to satellite data, archaeologists have found more than 4,000 canals and about 700 farms located according to a strictly organized scheme. Canals up to 9 kilometers long, an extensive irrigation network, infrastructure that could not have been built by disparate tribes. It required engineers, workers, a management system. And all this, thousands of years before the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Akkadians appeared. The strangest thing is that the region was abandoned, and therefore this entire ancient system has survived almost intact. It's as if our modern city were buried under ash, and someone found it whole 6,000 years later. Eridu is mentioned in the Sumerian king list as the first city to be granted kingship from heaven. When myth and geodesy coincide, it gets a little creepy. A hoard of gold jewelry. Archaeologists, while exploring the Karnak temple complex in Luxor, have discovered an ancient vessel filled with gold jewelry, beads, and figurines of Egyptian gods. According to experts, the find dates back to the 26th dynasty of Egypt and is about 2,600 years old. Jewelry in ancient Egypt was not just luxury items, it was considered magical amulets that protected the owner from evil and disease. They played an important role not only in life but also in the underworld, providing protection for eternity. Among the artifacts, the figurines of the god Amun, the goddess Mut, and their son Khonsu stand out. They were probably used as amulets and worn around the neck. Amun was considered the king of the gods and the patron of the pharaohs, and later united with Ra, becoming the embodiment of both the visible and invisible deity. All the found items will be restored and possibly exhibited in the Luxor Museum. Ptolemaic gold. This tiara is over 2,000 years old. It was created in Egypt during the Ptolemaic dynasty, the period that began immediately after the death of Alexander the Great. Most likely it belonged to one of the noble women, a queen, priestess, or heiress at court. The decoration is made of thin sheet gold. On the sides are torches, a symbol of power and light. In the center is the Knot of Hercules, a well-known amulet of the Greco-Roman tradition. It was associated with protection, healing, luck, and childbirth. On the tiara, it is not an amulet but is part of the form, tied exactly along the line of the forehead. Golden tassels hang from the lower edge. Originally, there were 8 of them. 5 have survived. When the head moved, they swayed, reflecting the light. Inserts of carnelian, garnet, and pearls are visible only from a close distance. The decoration was created not for ostentatious effect, but as part of a personal image. Such things rarely reach our days, especially in almost complete form. Now the tiara is in the Getty Museum, where it is exhibited separately under spotlight. But even under the glass, it is clear that this is not just an object. It once lay on the head, and it belonged not to the era, but to a person. None of this changes history, but altogether it makes you look at it more closely. It's easy to miss these things, but if you stop, they stick in your mind for a long time. Thanks for watching this video to the end. Bye everyone.